Swim out after bodies, yes, you are. So I had to get in the whirlpool and I had to swim out about 50, 70 yards, throw a rope on with hooks in it, hook the body, and they pulled it in. That was my start.
Going over the falls is illegal, punishable by fines of up to $25,000 if you live to pay up. And given the family's history, it's all the more inexplicable to Wes that his brother took his chances in the falls and lost.
I think he watched the falls and figured that if he had something light enough, it would get thrown out away from the falls and he could make it. So he asked me to help him. I said, no. I said, you're going to die. I said, you're heavier than that contraption you're in. I said, when that goes over the falls, it hits the water at the bottom, it's going to stop. You're going to go to that like a cannonball. That's exactly what happened.
When people go over the falls, the force of the water below smashes their bodies to bits on the rocks. And if not there, the bodies are driven deep down and spun around so much, torn to pieces. It's a terrible thing to say, but they become fish food. And so usually just pieces of bodies are found below the falls.
Dave Monday is one of the few people to risk going over the falls not once, but 3 times. In 1985, he equipped a heavy-duty steel barrel with a tiny window, a home video camera, and plenty of extra padding. Remarkably, the whole stunt was captured on film. When the appointed hour came, Monday's crew rolled him into the river, moving quickly to avoid being caught by the Niagara Falls police. As Monday's barrel drifted toward the brink of the falls, Niagara authorities used the power plant control structure to stop the flow of water, lowering it to only about 2 feet. A short time later, Monday's barrel came to rest against a small dam. Monday was arrested, fined, and put on probation, but he still didn't give up. 2 months later, with cameras rolling, Monday was back in the water, this time just 150 yards from the brink. He survived the journey and was safely rescued from the water below. 8 years later, he did it again. He gained the dubious distinction of being the first man to go over the falls twice.
I think that a lot of daredevils think they're going to get rich doing these crazy acts. That's not the case. Most daredevils end up being very poor. Some of them end up being very dead, and they never take into account the fact that they have to get recovered. And that usually falls to the police, fire, and ambulance in the area, and it's no fun.
Some of those who defied the falls are laid to rest here in Drummond Hill Cemetery on the Canadian side. Carl Suchek was one of them, and his story is a twisted tale. His remains are here beneath this headstone. On July 2nd, 1984, he took the plunge in a barrel and was lucky enough to live.
A few years after his stunt here, when he was doing a stunt at the Houston Astrodome, he was being dropped from the ceiling of the Astrodome and was supposed to be landing in a large tank of water. But instead, his barrel did not reach the tank of water. It hit the side of the tank, and he was killed.
Then there are the nameless victims of the falls. This part of the cemetery is dedicated to them.
This corner where we're standing right now is often referred to as Floater's Corner because it was here that many of the victims of the Niagara River were buried. Perhaps they'd gone over the falls, perhaps it was a suicide, maybe it was an accident. Well, there are really no markers here to identify any of these people. In most cases, we don't know who they were anyway. But this is their last resting place.
"14 million people come to Niagara Falls each year. They are drawn to a natural wonder with an heroic sense of scale. The American falls are more than 1,000 feet wide, and the Canadian more than twice that, 2,600 feet. Millions of gallons of water cascading ceaselessly, up to 100,000 cubic feet per second, is an awesome sight. But it wasn't always like that. The falls have actually stopped flowing not once, but twice. The first time was in 1848 when an ice storm dammed the river at Buffalo, New York.
People living here knew something was wrong. So they went out of their homes and ran to the falls, and the moon's light, the full moon, was shining on bare rock where the falls had been. And many people had thought that the world had come to an end. They knelt and prayed, they were crying.
When the ice dam broke, the water started flowing again. The second time the falls went silent happened in 1969 when the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers diverted the water from the American side over to the Canadian side.
The plan was to see if those rocks could or should be removed. If they could be removed, that it was felt would improve the appearance of the American Falls. But after several months of studying the problem, it was decided just to leave things as they were, leave it to nature. So the water was turned back on, and that's the way it's been.
For so many visitors, seeing the falls is unlike anything else they've ever experienced.
Oh, they're gorgeous. They're absolutely gorgeous.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. Gave me butterflies when I first looked down. Awesome.
But for as long as visitors have been coming to the falls, just seeing them hasn't been enough. They want to be bowled over by the experience. And for that to happen, you might want to climb aboard a legend called the Maid of the Mist.
That is the way to go. It's unbelievable. The Maid of the Mist goes right up below the falls in the river. It's amazing. I don't know how to describe it. It's just wow.
The Maid of the Mist has been in operation since 1846, and over the years it's carried an estimated 100 million passengers. But in the beginning, the Maid of the Mist wasn't a fun way to spend an afternoon. It was a necessity. There was no bridge across Niagara back in 1846, and the Maid of the Mist ferried people, mail and cargo, across the river until 1848, when the first of 4 bridges was built.
After the bridges were built, the ferry service was redundant, so they started taking people up to the falls. And it's run continuously ever since.
A second boat was added in 1854, but then, in 1955, an accidental fire sparked by a welder's torch destroyed both vessels. An enterprising Chamber of Commerce supervisor salvaged some of the wood, carving out wooden nickels and imprinting them with the likeness of the Maid of the Mist. Beginning that same year, new steel diesel-powered maids were launched, and these are the boats we see today.
Sometimes the sheer volume of water, I think, just totally amazes people. And to see this amount of water coming over the falls 24/7 is actually amazing. You know, of course, people wonder where it comes from, and we always get the inevitable question, you know, do you pump this all back at night? Again, you know.
And the best time to see all this magnificent water is after 5 in the afternoon. That's when the Maid of the Mist can get in closest to the falls, because the prevailing winds are calmer and you might also be treated to a great rainbow or sunset. But chances are, anytime you fit the Maid of the Mist into your travel plans, you'll probably see and feel something to remember.
Excellent.
Incredible. You get
very good.
Very wet. Very wet. That's true. Unbelievable.
It's more beautiful if you saw the falls from below than if you are up there.
Though the Maid of the Mist promises excitement, there are those who have always wanted to get even closer to the powerful falls, even if it meant risking life and limb. The preferred vantage point used to be Table Rock, a large flat shelf close to Horseshoe Falls.
To stay standing was not usually possible. You crouched down on all fours, especially if you wanted to go over to the edge of Table Rock and peep over the edge. You didn't do that standing up. You might lose your balance, or the wind currents might knock you over. So you went on all fours to peep over the edge, and it was still frightening.
Eventually, the force of Niagara's water crumbled Table Rock to a fragment. What remained was blasted away for safety reasons in 1935. But adrenaline junkies found another way to get up close and personal with the falls. In 1899, a treacherous tunnel was carved out behind Horseshoe Falls. Plucky visitors had to climb over a crude path of stones and be wary of the thrashing water that wanted to claim them as its own.
I've read several early accounts of visitors who went behind the falls here and returned temporarily deaf because of the tremendous roar. And it was some hours before they got their hearing back.
But a lot has changed since then. The tunnel behind the falls and the area once known as Table Rock have been combined to create an unforgettable attraction. It's called Journey Behind the Falls, and it literally is a journey behind the falls. To get to the incredible window on the falls, you have to take an elevator 125 stories down, then travel through a series of tunnels. Once you get through the underground labyrinth, you are face to face with pure liquid power. And the best part is, you have several viewing options. There's a covered observation deck that gives you an overview of the area. But if you want to feel the power of the gushing water course through you, you can stand on the patio. And for those who want to get as close to the falls as they possibly can, there are two open portals that put you face to face with a wondrous wall of water. More than 1 million visitors each year experience Journey Behind the Falls, as many as 30,000 a day.
It was like taking a shower but with clothes on.
When we walked down and we saw the falls and just looking up
and the pressure,
and seeing the sun reflecting in the distance, it was an amazing view and an amazing sight.
You're actually close enough to touch the water, but doing that is strictly off limits. It's flowing so fast it would actually break bones, and the Park Service makes sure visitors are kept at a safe distance. But that doesn't seem to spoil the experience.
The power, you can feel it from your feet, all the way through your body, and I like that. You go underneath the falls and the air, everything is just vibrating, because it's pulsing because of the power. You can't get that anywhere else.
It's amazing to think that you're in this little tunnel and that there is this entire waterfall and lake over you. And you see a little water cracking through the ceilings and you're thinking, oh my gosh, is this gonna come crashing down?
Seem so insignificant, don't you?
Yeah.
Nature at its most powerful and man at his least important, I guess.
It's enough to humble anyone and has probably made more than one visitor think about their place in the world. When people visit Niagara Falls, they not only want to see the power and majesty of one of Mother Nature's finest works of aquatic art, they want to experience it. A popular attraction that gives visitors an incredible feel for the falls is Cave of the Winds. The name is an historical throwback to another time.
The Cave of the Winds was once a cavern behind the small Bridal Veil Falls. And until 1955, you could actually walk behind the Bridal Veil Falls. And it was so windy back there that it would take your breath away, hence its name, Cave of the Winds. But in 1955, the state decided that because of rock falls that had happened before, in which some people were killed, that they were going to remove the ceiling of the cave forever. And so they blasted it away in 1955. So since then, you only walk up to the Bridal Veil Falls, not behind it.
But walking up to it can be just as thrilling. Today, a multi-platform deck winds down to the bottom of Bridal Veil Falls, where the wind whips up